if you can let go of joy, then trust me, letting go of sorrow becomes so much easier. If you're attached to your joy, watch out. You're probably also clinging to your suffering too. Are you getting high or are you actually getting free? Spiritual practice can take you to the top of the mountain, but that isn't the same thing as walking around with a sense of inner freedom. Hey, I'm David Wegman. Welcome back to the channel. I'm a sniper turned meditator and yogin. I'm also the director of Kailash Ashram, a traditional meditation and yoga retreat. On this channel, we love to share ideas, practices, and topics from the meditation and yoga tradition to help you find a deeper sense of connection to yourself, to help you live life as a soul, and to most importantly, sift through a lot of the nonsense that is out there in the scene, the spiritual scene. Bonus karma points if you hit that subscribe button. Tonight's session is from our weekly live question and answer where we do 30 minutes of sharing followed by 30 minutes of meditation. You know, we see a lot of people in the spiritual community who garner or get really powerful peak sort of experiences, these big profound shifts of consciousness. And the process of integrating and understanding where these big moments fit in the context of a spiritual practice is not particularly well understood. I might backtrack a little bit upon my own journey. Early in my journey with the expansion of a spiritual awakening, even though I still really don't like that word, but that's really what it was that I went through a few years ago now, was that there were moments where I was pinching myself, not really sure what was real, not really sure what was going on. I was quite untethered, quite ungrounded. And then the meditation entered my life and things really started shifting, and many different things have appeared on my path as teachers, as guides, as practices to do, be they yogic or shamanic. And one of the common things that spiritual practice in general can do is get you high. There's no way to beat around the bush. It can leave you feeling completely ecstatic, joyful, exuberant, like, oh wow, I've just cut away a bunch of lead weight, and as a helium-filled balloon, I'm soaring pretty high. And anyone who's gone up knows that invariably there will be a contraction or an expansion, or something will come back down. And initially, when you get going on the spiritual path, well, certainly for me, I was craving that feeling of being high, being elated, being joyful, especially once I'd rebounded out of some quite dark, twisted periods of my life, a lot of kind of repression and held in energy, this sort of exuberant high on God, really, or not just high on God, high on substances, high on this, high on practice, high on life. It certainly led me to be very outward with my energy. And what I'd noticed is that no matter how high I got, there would always be a crash. And the crash wasn't necessarily pretty. I'd be chasing then another high. And so, you might be engaged in a pranayama practice in the hatha yoga. Now, doing a large amount of pranayama, with this restraint of one's energy and a lot of huffing and puffing, you can get yourself pretty high. Like, you can feel, quite physiologically lightheaded, but also, take yourself into realms of consciousness where the division or separation between the individuated sense of self and the cosmic self is not, that division is not super strong. So you feel kind of semi-merged with God, many places that you go. And this is great. But if it's been arrived at through mechanical imposition or through a substance in particular, plenty of substances, plenty of plants that people can smoke or drink to elicit that feeling of connection with something transcendent, it isn't a lasting state of equanimity or peace. Actually, equanimity and peace is not about getting high per se, it's about getting free. And so what is the difference between being free and being high? Now, full disclosure, and the retreat experience that we bring people through is like a sober, psychedelic / high-based journey. Like, it is a journey that will leave people very, very high. Deliberately so. Now, why is that? Why have we set out to create an experience where people are able to touch a place of unity or union? Well, the answer is hidden in the name Kailash. Kailash is a really beautiful name for a few reasons. The first is that it's the abode of Lord Shiva in the Sanatana Dharma, or the Hindu tradition, and being practitioners of yoga, we take Shiva to be the fountain of life. And so for Rajni and I, Kailash is it's a name that conjures a devotional offering towards Shiva, which is a particularly strong aspect of life to invoke into your daily life. Certainly, when I was feeling a bit worse for wear this evening, and Rajni promptly reminded me as I was complaining, going, I'm so exhausted. What am I going to talk about? Help me, dear God. I've got to go to the yurt and hold space and share a meditation, have a chat, update people about the ashram. Rajni said, don't worry, forget about it. It's a Shiva temple. And that smacked me in the face like a wet fish. I was like, oh yeah, shit, that's right. So there I was, caught by the fatigue in the body, caught by the weariness of my mind, and the devotional heart that Rajni had was enough to make me realize that present here in this yurt, through invocation, through invitation, is a gateway to consciousness for us and many other people who've been here now. And so it made me kind of clean up my act and contextualize my suffering in terms of, going over to a space, a sacred space to us where Shiva is most certainly present for us. Gulp, I'll go over and I'll speak the truth, and I will put aside my weariness and fatigue and be present with Shiva. and so for those that are uninitiated in the broadest bhakti or devotional based yoga practice, that instantaneous yoking of the emotions to pull one out of the suffering is it's formidable. It's a powerful, powerful ally. So to have that devotional dimension in my life, I lit a lamp, I chanted a mantra, I burned some incense, and I'm like reminded myself where I was, and I'm like, wow, okay. There's a bigger context to what's going on, not just my fatigue. But back to getting high or getting free. In the process of chasing highs or cultivating highs, as we do on the soul retreat, it's a journey of the ascent upwards, up Mount Kailash. And where is it that we endeavor to take people to is to a union with Shiva inside of themselves. Now, they don't need to necessarily call it Shiva. They can just be present with the soul inside of themselves. And so we build a very curated journey quite strategically through a series of different activities and teachings that shake up the energy inside, elicit the obstructions. We help people remove the obstructions, and it's just an unburdening process, so that by the time things are woven together at the fire ceremony at the end, there is a real opportunity to feel a deep sense of connection to one's soul. And given what we witnessed, I mean, some of the most powerful moments of my life next to, childbirth and, deaths and getting married, it's like the end of the soul retreat. It's one moment that really does stay with me and touches me exceedingly deeply after Rajni and I have given our all for 5 days, shared everything that we know about everything, and put our heart and soul on the line, welcome people into our home, and then held space for that really beautiful journey. People's sharing comes from such a truthful place within that it's an absolute honor for us to witness that and be present just whilst people are touching that vibration within. So Kailash is a sacred mountain, not just for the Hindu or Sanatana Dharma, but also the Jain, Bon, and Buddhist traditions all have a deep reverence for this mountain in Tibet. And upon a little bit more study, the name Kailash reveals some really interesting things. Kai actually means to sound out or to rejoice. It's like, ah! And Lhasa is a dance, right? It's a dance of ecstasy. And so Kailash for us is very much a place for that sounding out of the dance of the ecstasy of life. And so it can take people pretty bloody high. And we're not spiking the food with any nootropics or any funny things. Like, people feel that energy come alive. Just Shelley's pure love into the food, Rajni's beautiful recipes and the beautiful setting and company and intention with which people come brings them into that synthesis with their soul. And so getting high, what's the benefit of that? Well, what has been the benefit of getting high upon my own path, whether it's through particular shamanic medicines have definitely expanded my consciousness. Yogic practice has expanded it. Meditation has expanded it. Devotional practice, just being in the proximity of a revered guru has brought about some of these very profound experiences. Well, they've let me believe in something more than me. So fundamentally, those experiences of attaining a high state have given me an inner conviction into the truthful presence of God. They've let me believe in the divine in a less intellectual way and a more felt kind of experience. Like there's kind of, it's almost, well, and bliss in some traditions is believed to be a fundamental property of this consciousness, truth, consciousness, bliss, Satchitananda, or just pure love. Love is a deeper, nourishing thing that emerges when the conditions are right. So the practices that will take you high, or a retreat that will take you high, might teach you to believe in an experiential way that there is something beyond the grind, beyond the daily hardships that we face as humans. The single biggest thing that robs that feeling and prevents it from coming back is an attachment to it. Oh, this is amazing. I feel blissful and I want more of it. Boom, there you go. That's an instant path towards suffering. I feel amazing. This is great. How long is it going to last? The second these sorts of questions come in, you can tell that you're really, you're beyond the peak and you're now looking backwards towards the top of the mountain. Now, the goal of Samarpan Dhyan, of the process of surrendering, is not indeed to forcibly create a permanent high state. Like that's not necessarily what I've understood liberation to be. It is liberation from the attachment to the ups and downs and the cycles as they flow. So I'll say that again. It is a surrendering or a non-attachment to the change between high and low, which is a little bit disappointing for that part of me that really, really likes being high. Samarpan Dhyan, the process of surrendering that attachment, means that the experience, those peak sorts of experiences, are felt, they've lived, and then they're allowed to pass. And in the process of allowing them to pass, even the high, the dip into the low isn't as bad. Because nothing has crashed me as hard as trying to cling on to the top of the mountain when the whole cosmos wants me to be going downhill. Okay, well, here we are, we go downhill. And you roll into the downhill. Similarly, Samarpan Dhyan teaches that though you may well flow off a high peak feeling great and then there's a small contraction or a shrinking back in, that when the low comes, the quality of non-attachment also keeps you from getting bogged down in that ditch. Okay, it means that you've got the momentum to continue to roll. My experience over the years has meant that, or has shown me that instead of trying to chase up and down like that, there's a sense of gentleness, a sense of lawfulness of the vibration through life. Now, one may be able, if this process and practice takes a hold completely fully, to eradicate any high and low. I believe that may well be theoretically possible. Insofar as I have a body, my experience has been that the highs and lows will come. Food must be eaten, food must be passed, water must be drunk, water must be released. It's a part of the cyclical nature of life until there is the relinquishing finally of the physical form. Interestingly, the process of surrendering works to enhance that height as well. So, the feeling of bliss, the feeling of connection, the feeling of merging with the divine is only actually made possible through the practice of surrender, through letting go. And so, I doubt that the high that one can speak of is truly equivalent to the high that can be felt when the presence of that Almighty or the presence of that larger consciousness reveals itself to you. My experience has been that when that comes in, it can be a bit like a tidal wave of energy in front of you, a sense of death by astonishment almost, like a breath is taken away and the only gesture left to do is to let oneself go into that space, to be taken into that realm. This may be a little bit out there for some of you that are grappling with difficulties right now, but or challenges of life. I mean, I'm not talking about something that is. I'm not sure how common this sort of experience is. It's sort of reared its head in my life a few times where the sense of overwhelm of the spirit or of something larger, a sense of love or a sense of genuine forgiveness or a sense of release, when these things have emerged towards me, I now know through the practice of the Samarpan Dhyan, the meditation, to not try to get caught in the mind, thinking about it, not get attached to the experience, trying to think how I'm going to recreate it next time, but just to let myself into it fully. And so if you can be non-attached to a peak experience as it emerges, then similarly, one may also learn to cultivate non-attachment to daily emotions. They might not be these big transcendental spiritual awakening type experiences, but they may be something that is, a sense of joy coming through a daily encounter. And instead of jumping on top of it, you allow it to be. Where this practice really kicks goals and where I see its benefit, like most people are convinced of wanting, at least in principle, to let go of their suffering. But truly to have the strength of surrender, if that makes sense, because I know it's not an action, but it is there's an inner conviction towards the path of surrender that if you can let go of joy, then trust me, letting go of sorrow becomes so much easier. If you're attached to your joy, watch out. You're probably also clinging to your suffering too. Okay, you can't have it both ways of like holding on to joy and letting go of suffering. All I've seemed to worked out over the years is that true equanimity is the courage to let go of even the bliss. And that means that the strength when the shit hits the fan, and it is a difficult circumstance, your default setting is not to be entangled and grab that whatever thing that is really vying to pull you into a place inside yourself you don't want to go. Okay, I've let go of joy, I've let go of love, I've let go of all of these things. I can let go of a little bit of heat in the body as this person says something that makes my blood boil, or like something gets triggered from your past, and all of the stuff comes up. Well, how surrendered are you? Were you letting go of those highs? Because if you have been, the lows tend to be let go of easier. And so in part, the retreat experience will build people up, and then there's a bit of a coasting, but now how the hell am I going to do this? And the wrong way to do it is to think that you can recreate the retreat experience by yourself. I mean, and that's not the purpose. The purpose is the retreat experience. I can't create the retreat experience by myself. No one can. We need those 12 unique souls back here, but they'll be different by the time they get here. So truly it was a once in a lifetime moment. Where the Himalayan meditation, Samarpan Dhyan, comes in is that peak that I attained on the retreat might not be attainable in daily life because it's a different mountain, but what is the mountain of the present moment? What is the mountain that I must climb today? What is the most enlightened version of this present moment? Is it feigning interest? Is it, pulling out because it's too much, because it's got too high or too difficult to understand? What is the highest thing that we can call into being now? And in the next moment, and in the next moment. And when you're back home at a meditation, the highest manifestation might literally be just showing up and sitting through 30 minutes of the insanity of the mind. And if that is the highest potential of that moment, and you sit through and you bear witness fully to what has arisen, then you're beginning to live in a freer way, transcending the yearning for a peak experience to come again, and also transcending the aversion or the pushing away of the difficulties that you might be facing. This sense of presence and actually just looking and being with what is arising it sounds ironic that to look at your suffering frees you from it. But in my experience, the second that the eyes are averted, you've been caught by a different energy, and your action is going to take you down a path that is probably away from your destiny. And the more that you're able to look into the uncomfortable thing that sits in you or reflected in front of you, when you're able to gaze deeply into that without aversion or attachment and just a sense of acceptance, okay, then the next step is like you go through a threshold. Not physically, you don't enter into like a little portal, a green portal, and pop out another side. You just go deeper with your soul, walking hand in hand with that part of your consciousness that is unafraid and unattached. Okay, so in the spirit of sitting without attachment or without fear of whatever arises, in the spirit of sitting without attachment to maybe what's just been a life-changing, awesome experience for me as well, to sit with non-attachment to the weariness of my body and the weariness of my mind and the impatience that I already have to go and eat more food and go to bed, to let all of that go is the spirit I'm sitting in tonight. And I invite you to sit this week with a complete sense of acceptance of each and every day, and to ask yourself, if you do get stuck, what is the highest way to be right here and right now? Don't go looking for that external buzz or that substance that takes you there, but what is it that you can see, hear, and be in order to allow that soul to come alive? Well, I hope there were a few nuggets of gold in there for you with tonight's sharing. If you'd like to hear more from me and the ashram in the Grampians, make sure you hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for our future sharings. Also, if you're interested in joining us for one of our in-person retreats or learning a little bit more about one of our meditation programs, please have a look in the description. Up next, I've got an awesome playlist including more traditional yogic wisdom made relevant for modern times on this playlist.